Hi, I'm Rob Pritchard and I'm the sports editor at Manx Radio. Well, it's the time of year that all FC Isle of Man fans have been waiting for. After several weeks of pre-season preparations, the Ravens take to the field for their first game of the 2024-25 NWCFL Premier Division season this weekend when they host Chadderton at the Bowl on Saturday the 27th of July. Having finished 13th in the standings in 22-23, in what was a bit of a reality check for the Manx side in their first campaign at Step 5 of the non-league pyramid, FC Isle of Man made progress last season. They went on to finish higher in 9th in 23-24. So, what's it going to take to reach the next level and maybe be in the hunt for title or promotion success? As the new campaign beckons, I spoke with FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones to find out what he thinks his team has in the locker as they prepare to set off on their latest league adventure. Paul, thanks again for joining us. Now, the NWCFL Premier Division season is back. The 2024-25 campaign gets underway this weekend. Before we get to the match itself, yesterday morning, the 22-man squad for FC Isle of Man for this upcoming season was announced. So, what do you think that squad, in terms of quality, has to offer for this coming season as a whole?
A huge amount of quality. I think that's I think anyone who's watched us play over the last few years will see the players in there and think, wow, that's a top squad. There's some real strong players in there that will all be pushing for a starting place every week. We've obviously included Mike Williams and Dan Simpson in the hope and belief that they'll be back and available for us at some point this season. We wanted to give them, some confidence that we're with them and that we're still supporting them through their rehab, and we're looking forward to welcoming them back into our training group when that opportunity arises. But I think we've got a really strong group there that can push on this season.
And speaking of Michael Williams and Dan Simpson there, unfortunately Dan Simpson suffered a leg fracture during last season, which ruled him out the rest of the campaign. We haven't seen Michael Williams toward the tail end of the last season as well. So what's the status of both of those in terms of their rehab at the moment?
Yeah, they're both progressing. Dan had started back running again and has had to just kind of slow things down a little bit because of some reactions that he got. But he's in a really good place and his legs healed well. By all accounts, and Michael had to have some knee surgery towards the end of last season and is recovering from that, and he's just doing really well, and I think being involved and knowing that they're part of our squad and our group hopefully gives them even more kind of motivation to work on their rehab and get back into training as soon as they can, as safely as possible. So they're in a good place, I think, and it means that we're 2 players short in some respects, but as I'm sure you're going to ask, that's not the only 22 players that we've got registered for our football club, but we were just looking to give them some certainty about where they stood, and also hopefully the local game, as I've said previously. That group is the main group that we're going to be selecting from and working with, unless form and injuries kind of dictate otherwise.
Yeah, we'll come to the numbers of personnel in just a moment, but just looking at some of the names that have not just come in, but also gone out as well. We've already spoken about the fact that club captain Frank Jones isn't going to be part of the setup this season. Midfielder Tiernan Garvey, striker Fira Davies were already confirmed to be leaving towards the end of last season as well. We're also Owen Sherrod and Phil Kelly aren't part of the setup as well this year. So for the players that are coming in, how confident are you that you've got the same sort of quality that those players that aren't involved would have left behind?
Yeah, they're big players. They all played a big part last season. They're all not around because they're leaving the Isle of Man. It's we had hoped to be working with Phil and Owen this season, but they've had some opportunities off island for work, and we wish them all the very best. And we knew Shearer was off to Dubai or the Middle East, and Tiernan was off to university in America. So Sam Baines is back. We've got a player there who has already proven in pre-season what a big player he could be for us this season. And the other players we've got coming in, Ethan only really didn't get good runs of games at the end of last season because of his exams and other things that happened within his life that meant he wasn't available. So we know that everybody in that squad is capable, more than capable of doing very well at this level of football. And, with that kind of tighter group, it means that hopefully they'll be playing more often than not, and we can get some consistency in terms of our team and squad selection as much as we possibly can. So, I've got no worries at all in terms of the players that are in that group being able to not just cope at this level of football, but thrive and hopefully get us as close to the top of the table as possible by the end of the season.
And along with the initial 22-man squad that was announced on Thursday morning, it's worth clarifying as well that you as a club do actually have more players registered than those 22 that have been announced. Could you just explain the situation around that, why that's the case?
Yeah, as I think I've said to you before, we wanted to do things a little bit differently, learn lessons that have worked well or not so well, not just for us, but the local game as well over the last kind of 3 seasons. And by kind of having a smaller as such kind of first team squad, those players know where they are, but there's also kind of a group of players that kind of sit between a little bit, so maybe aren't quite guaranteed started as at the moment or guaranteed to be in every squad, but who are progressing really, really well within our club, but probably also need to be playing regularly in the local game. So those players know where they are in that situation. So, people like at the moment Tom Creer and Ryan Gartland and Matty Lamb and Luke Booth have come into the group this season. They're doing really, really well, and we want to keep working with them as much as possible, but we also recognise that they're probably going to be wanting to play football in the local game. And whereas last season nearly everybody in the squad felt like in limbo a little bit and not sure whether they're going to be in or out of a squad on a week-to-week basis. We're kind of committed. He's 22. We've got a much smaller group of players that will be the next group that we go to if we're looking for players to come into squads or players to come into teams, depending upon position requirements. And then there's another group of players who are more the younger players and players who don't really have as much experience playing at a higher level of football, who we're going to invite in at regular intervals through the season to keep close to keep providing an opportunity for them to play with more experienced players potentially and push on, which will hopefully help their performances in the local game, but also maybe identify those that might be first team players in the seasons ahead for us. So, I think we're somewhere close to 40 registered players this season. In previous years, all 40 have thought they're going to be first team players that season, and this year we've got 22 that know they are. We've got a group outside of that which are trying to push into that first team group and know where they stand, and we're talking to about how we can work with them and make sure they can play local football as much as possible and train with their local teams as well. And then there's another group which are kind of more of a future focused group where they will do well to push into our squad this season or our first team this season, but are very much for the future, and they know where they stand, and hopefully that just makes things a little bit more clearer for everybody, rather than every player thinking that they could be in a first team squad each week, or in every club on the island not quite knowing who I will or won't pick on a weekend. So fingers crossed it works. If it doesn't, then it'll be on my shoulders.
Well, now that all the pre-season preparations have come to an end, and we are imminently starting the season with this home tie against Chadderton, which we'll come to in a moment, the $1 million question really, because you've been adamant for a while that this team has the quality, you believe it has the quality to be pushing for promotion. What's it going to take this season to be in contention?
Consistency. I think we got better last season, but we still had a long stretch, or too long as it was, between kind of October and December where we weren't winning enough matches. And the teams that do well in any level of football manage to consistently win football matches and get points on the board, and that's something that we've not done the last 2 seasons anywhere near enough. Losing a game isn't the be all and end all. It shouldn't define the season, but there's times in the last couple of years where we go on a run of games where we don't get enough points or any points, and that'll be something that we really have to work hard on this season. Making sure that we get points as much as possible every game, but if we don't get points in a particular fixture, then the next fixture we do. So we're always kind of maintaining and attempting to build momentum through the season. So that's, a number of reasons. I don't think it's necessarily down to quality. Some of it is mental, psychological, just in terms of being able to be focused and concentrated. And that's hard when you get into certain parts of the season when, they've been traveling lots and training lots and away from family lots. And, it's not easy to do, but if we really want to fulfill our ambitions this season and get the player group to the levels that we know they're capable of, that's probably the key thing that we need to improve on.
And now then, it feels like a good time to turn to that opening game this weekend up against Chadderton at the Bowl, 6 o'clock on Saturday. Now, a Chadderton side that were one of the stronger contenders throughout the vast majority of the last campaign. So how crucial is it going to be, and how tough is it going to be, do you feel, to get a positive result and a positive performance to kickstart your season?
It's really tough. They proved that they were one of the better, more consistent teams in the league last season, despite having being newly promoted into that league last season. So they've made a few changes to their squad, but not wholesale changes. So I expect them to be a slightly better version than the one we played against last season. So I'm making it a really tough challenge, especially for the first game where, every team is still kind of trying to find its feet. And this first few weeks of the season, there's maybe every team is going to be looking for a little bit of performance consistency. So, we've had a really good pre-season. I think, we're comfortable and happy that we've pushed on again a little bit. And I think there's lots of expectation around the club, which is fantastic, but we've got to handle that in a really positive way, in a good way, and use all that belief that people have in us, which, is nice. It's fantastic that people believe that we should be up challenging for titles and playoff positions. It shows that what they have seen on the pitch towards the end of last season and through pre-season is something that gives them that kind of belief and excitement. But the players and all the coaches have to harness that now and use it in a really positive way. And, if we perform like we have done in some of these games pre-season, then we'll be in a really good place to give Chalaton not just a tough test themselves, but to, do our best to walk away with some points. But, the minute we get complacent, the minute we think that, we just have to walk onto a pitch to win a game of football is the minute that will cause ourselves lots of problems. So, it's the opportunity Saturday to start to, put a bit of a marker down in terms of how we want to perform. And I really hope that the supporters that come down keep giving the players the belief and keep giving them that positive environment to go and make mistakes, because they all will make mistakes, but to go and try things and to go and show the exciting sort of football that we're trying to create at the ball.
And finally, not just for yourself, but coming to the players, how excited are the players to get the season started?
Yeah, very much so, yeah. There's a really good atmosphere in the playing group and with amongst everybody at the moment. We're been buoyed by the performances we had over pre-season. There's large parts of those games where we've done really well, and I think the players are just kind of like champing at the bit to get going again. We've got a game Saturday, game Tuesday, then a little bit of a break that gives us a chance to work on a few things based on the learnings we have in those first two games. The players love playing football in front of their home crowd and their supporters. They love pulling the shirt on, and there seems to be like an extra level of anticipation and excitement within the group this year. And hopefully, as I've said before, that's harnessed in the right way, and they use it to help them to get the performances they're capable of, rather than see it as something to be afraid of, or to withdraw back in themselves and play in a more defensive manner. So, yeah, fingers crossed they can take the energy that's clearly visible in their training sessions and that's been around all pre-season into Saturday, and regardless in some ways of result, a really positive performance, full of energy and enthusiasm. And if we get that, we have that for the season, we won't be far away by April.
Thank you for having the stamina to make it to the end of the Manx Radio Sportscast. You're clearly someone who has their eye on the ball at all times. Want to hear more about the latest sporting news across the Isle of Man and much more? Then might I recommend you take the plunge and subscribe to this series or a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so that, in a flash, all of our finest moments take a winner's place on your smartphone. Thank you.